Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Ingrid Hanson-Popp, a professional pianist and author, and we'll learn from her about her book, Becoming an Orphan. We'll learn about her caregiving, how to handle aging parents' needs, family conflict, and the journey of healing after loss. Welcome to the show, Ingrid.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here, KJ. And do you pronounce it KJ or AJ?
Both are correct. Both are correct.
Okay, terrific.
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to the show once again. Welcome to India in this online form, Ingrid. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. As said, we'll talk about caregiving, we'll talk about grief, and we'll talk about finding hope through family challenges. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Terrific. Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here. So, I'm a people person. I love people, both my parents. That's one of the heritages or legacies I've gotten from them. They just loved people. They loved watching people, talking to people, getting to know them. And I'm also an encourager, and I get that from God. If I see someone discouraged or down, it breaks my heart and I want to help. So that's a little who I am. Like you said, I am a professional pianist, and this authoring has come to me in the last maybe 10 years. And it all started with story. My mom, as she was aging, she had a dream of having her own story in a book form. And so I helped her achieve that dream, and we created a story about her life. It was a long, beautiful, content life. And when I released that book, which was called Cellophane Farm, we grew up on a farm, and I met people who, at the release parties and launch parties of the book, who realized I had shepherded my mom through the end of her life. And they would come up to me and just pour out their stories and their frustrations about things that were happening with their aging parents. And what struck me was, as they told their stories, that these were hardworking, intelligent, problem-solving people. And every single one of them had this intense, overwhelmed, I'm lost, I don't know what to do feeling. So as I walked away from all those experiences, I thought, I think there's something here. There's a need here. People are in stress with their whole family and parents, and they don't know where to turn. And I thought, well, that could be because there isn't an easy place to turn. So that's how I thought about writing the book, Becoming an Orphan, a Caregiver's Guide, which looks like this. And, but I quickly realized that my own stories were not going to be enough to help a broad range of people. My father died when I was 15, and that definitely shapes your entire personality in life. My mother lived to be 87 years old. She never had dementia. She lived at home until almost the very end of her life. And I thought, well, I have stories to tell, but I need a broader range of stories. And so I had over 24 people that I asked. Most of them I knew, or maybe they were friends of friends, clients and relatives and friends, to tell me their stories about where they were in taking care of their aging parents. And some of them had barely started, some were right in the middle of difficult situations, and some, their parents had already passed. And so I gleaned the wisdom and the stories, all stories from them. And those were beautiful times, because every single person agreed to tell the stories and let me write them, because they wanted to help other people, because they hadn't had a resource like this book. And that was that was special to me, and it was an honor that they would tell me their stories and let me publish them, and I tried to keep their own voice. So you meet all these other fellow orphans, as I call them, in my book, and I've retained their own personality and voice in their stories.
Absolutely, Ingrid. Absolutely. Let's understand this word called caregiving, because in India, in this part of the world, especially in India, and with relation to parents are parents and children, they all stay in the same house or different houses, but mostly, the culture is totally different. And because obviously the modern life has also crept in, so people's ideas are different, parents' ideas may be different, children's ideas are different, so they try to be closely connected, but many a times that system still is that parents stay with or children stay with parents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is it. So we do not have a separate word called caregiving for parents. Either you care or you less care, or maybe don't care, depending on the situation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But there is no word called caregiving for parents. How would you like people to understand caregiving for parents as understood in that part of the world, so that many people are, attuned to the world, but there are, millions of people who are, who have never been out of India.
Right.
And they would want to understand it in that aspect. It is something new for so many of them.
Yes. Now I love that, because what we're finding is, like you said, in your part of the world, the families stay together under the same roof. They live in the same home together. And I think really slowly in the Western world, people are starting to figure out that can be a really good idea. And our strong bent towards independence actually is a lot of times what creates the extra stress, because children don't want to be involved, and parents don't want their children involved. They want to stay independent even when they need help. So in your context in India, there are some advantages and disadvantages. And I would say one of the things, when you live together all the time, you may not notice as readily when your parent is starting to maybe slip mentally or decline even physically, that their mobility starts to decline, because you see them every day, and it seems normal. And so one of the things I talk about is how do you notice when they really do need some help? And I'd say in your context is, well, how do your parents do when you go outside of your home that's together to visit someone else, or to go to the shops or whatever? Are they having trouble getting up and down out of a chair, or walking up and down stairs? Or when they're with the extended family, more people, are you noticing that they're quieter? They're not interacting as much, perhaps, with the rest of the family. Well, that could be as simple as maybe their hearing is starting to go and decline. And so they're not hearing like a conversation where, instead of it's just all of you who live in the house together, now there's 10, 15 more people, and they can't hear properly. And so that noticing when they start to need help, that, like I said, I think that's where you could, in your culture, you could notice where they really need help. And I think it also can be, boy, I think the challenge of communication is going to be harder for you all when you live together normally, because we all in our relationships and families have patterns that we don't even realize we have. in communication. And so it can be when you start, and that's why when you start to notice there's some decline here, you need to be almost hyper alert to, okay, I know my parents' personality, and you living with them, you probably know better than a lot of Western people. Okay, I know their personality. I know they are willing to take help, or they tend to be more independent. They don't want help. And so it's noticing that and navigating. This is a big part of, if you're going to care for it to be successful, is retaining their dignity. And this came up even with my mom when, quick story, she had fallen. She lived in a 2-story house by herself. She was happy doing that, but she had fallen, and I had other family members, because I was closest to her, just all upset and saying, well, she shouldn't sleep upstairs. She shouldn't have her bedroom on the 2nd floor. She shouldn't do that. She needs to move downstairs and have a bedroom downstairs. And I'm like, wait, time out. It's her life. It's her house. She's not mentally incapable, and she's being safe. And why I'm bringing that up is that it rose up in me this protective of her dignity. And so that I think is so crucial in any setting, is to respect their dignity of how they've always lived, what they want, what they don't want. And sometimes maybe what they want can't be done anymore. And that takes sometimes a gentle style of communication. And again, you know your parent best, even if there are, let's say, even though if there's conflict, right? You understand them. And sometimes it's protecting their dignity is going to open the door for you to say, well, maybe it's not the best thing for you to go to the market by yourself. How about I come with you? Or how about your grandson goes with you? Maybe you're concerned about their walking ability, or even their intellectual ability, and you don't want them to be hurt. So if you retain their dignity and give them honor, I think it keeps that door open for suggestions. Does that
Absolutely.
seem useful?
Yes, indeed, Ingrid. So I want to understand for the audience is that, what are the challenges? What is the challenge? Even there should not be any challenge. In fact, it should be much more welcome, because everybody is having an independent life, and then someone needs help. You will try your best to be there. You just be there, help as much as you can, help as much as the other people want.
Exactly.
The other side want.
Right.
And then find a common ground, do it well, be well to each other.
Yes.
And just wish each other well. That's it.
Why is it
so difficult?
Right. It should be simple, right? It's people we love and honor, right? And I think that's a great question. So one of the challenges is here, and I maybe even there, people don't talk about the issue. Even now that the space is opening up, there are more authors and speakers and services out. Of course, we have in the kind of the medical field, the opportunities are opening up to help. But the thing is, people even still, my mom died in 2012, don't talk about the topic. Now, here's why: is they can be very, very personal things. So in our culture, mom and dad are probably still in charge of their own finances. And some families talk about money, some families don't. it could be very personal, physical hygiene things. And so it's embarrassing. It's unknown. I think that's the biggest thing, is what it's not talked about, because unknown things are happening with your parents' health and their bodies. And maybe all of a sudden they can't track their own finances like they have for their entire adult life. Well, how do you ask your kid for help? How does your adult child even realize, uh-oh, dad's forgetting to pay the bills, or he's not doing it correctly, or he's starting to give away his, email and bank account to strangers? How are you even going to know that? Because there are things that we just don't talk about. And most of it is because it's unknown. The person who starts failing in one area or another doesn't know how to ask. And again, it's that very compassionate, that's part of my title, lovingly letting our parents go, that compassion and very attentive observation, that you as an adult child will notice things that a stranger or a more distant relative is not going to notice. So I probably drifted off from your original question. Yeah, why is it challenging? I think it's mostly that it's unknown, and it doesn't. Now, here's a question I have for you. So here, we always think very, very in a line, linear. This happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And then we get over ambitious about planning. So if I just plan this, and then this, and then this, it'll all be good. In India, would you say that the thought process is more circular versus linear?
Yes, circular, emotional also,
Mhm.
emotional also. And one thing you talked about, planning is indeed required, and everyone involved in the whole situation, many a times it's a much more emotional thing rather than practical thing of
Yes.
planning. So sometimes what happens is that the planning is left behind, and only thing acting up is the emotional part, of which does not solve the problem.
Correct.
So planning is important, and I feel a lot of us here has to understand that part, especially that
Ah,
planning and moving forward with whatever the issue is actually in the benefit of the person
yes.
who needs that help. Otherwise, just talking will help, but
Right.
that is not the only thing needed at that point in time. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that part. So how do people get down to? But here, I guess we are humans. Even in any other part of the world, people emotions are involved.
Very much.
People will talk about other aspects. Some will also look at the will part of it. That how is that working out or not in case something happens. So how do you tackle those things there? What is it that you want to tell them through your story?
Right.
Also, what you have written in the book, which you call it as a memoir as well as a resource guide.
So communication, yes, and emotions. I think if we can understand the backdrop of this is going to be emotional, and part of the reason is because I wouldn't be here if my parents hadn't been here. The relationship for child to parent is completely unique. That seems obvious, but when everything gets emotional and you've got 6 family members arguing about what we should do and that we're upset and all that, we forget that that's where it comes from. And so communication, super important. And I think usually in a family, one person tends to become almost the spokesperson or the leader. And it may be the person with the calmest head, if I can say it that way, who can remain calm despite disputes or arguments or fear. And that's another thing to understand where all this emotion comes from is it's scary and it's unknown. I don't know if I don't know if she's going to get cancer. I don't know if she's going to recover from this disease. I don't know if she's going to get Alzheimer's. I don't know how fast she's going to decline. And so that is part of where all the upset and emotion comes. So it's interesting. So one other communication is tip, whether, like I said, one family member seems to always rise to the surface in a family system, and some family members don't want to deal with it, or they can't. So understanding what your limitations are. So for example, if I'm married and I have 4 young children or all school-age children, and I'm working full-time and my husband's working full-time, and then mom and dad start needing help, I need to be brutally honest about, okay, what are my limits? Can I do less hours in my job? Could I afford? Could I bring it down to part-time? How much do I have to be at every soccer game? Could I have grandma come to some soccer games to free up time for me to go help mom and dad? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. And some of it also means understanding, and not just understanding, it's accepting maybe other siblings, the emotional part is too much, and their style of dealing with problems is to exit. They don't want to be part of it. And so in a lot of the stories from the people I interviewed, they had siblings who, or maybe they had their own, like they were, I had one sibling was recovering, was like a recovering, sort of, not recovering, but alcoholic addict, and was barely holding their life together. Well, they knew they couldn't count on that sibling to help with mom and dad. They just weren't capable. And so knowing what your limits are and just accepting, and I think that's the hard human part, is accepting where everyone else is at. When you want them to do this, well, you live with them, why don't you help them more? And lastly, about this emotional connection with getting a realistic plan, it ties into community. And if you have your immediate family under the same roof, that's a great starting place. But we also want to include, who are your parents? Let's say they're really close friends. Well, maybe they can help. And it also takes a little burden off the adult children. Sorry, I'm starting to wander in topic here, I can tell. But so the other thing about communication, and when everybody's riled up, is to take a step back. And sometimes when you're trying to make a plan and you can tell that everybody is just getting more and more and more upset, just to say, if you're the kind of the lead person on this, just to say, you know what, let's talk about this tomorrow. I'm tired. We're all tired. Okay, let's revisit this tomorrow. For another short story, I needed to, I had been helping mom, and there were a whole list of questions coming up in my head. What are we going to do about this, that, and the other thing? I have one brother and one sister. My brother was out of state, working for months at a time. So he just wasn't available. And my sister lives far enough away, it was difficult for her to come in person to help with things. And I thought I really should call my sister and update her on XYZ. And I thought, not today though, I'm exhausted. And I don't need to have another set of opinions coming into this plan. Not today. I'll call her tomorrow And maybe she wants an update today. I'm done. It's my limit. I'll call her tomorrow, and it will all go better. And it did, because if I'm exhausted, then we just get all emotional again. So, and then the last idea, one of the other ideas I have in the book, and about this communication and how emotional we get, is sometimes there's a family friend, or a family friend, or even a pastor, or in your community of faith, somebody that really knows the family fairly well and is trusted. You can actually ask that person, hey, can you just come? Our family's getting together and we really need to talk about all of these things. Can you just sort of lead out on the conversation? Say, for example, mom's Alzheimer's is getting really bad. It's getting very scary for everyone. And we can't seem to come to a resolution on this. Can you just come and help lead a discussion about this mental decline, and keep us on track and make it productive? I think that, I mean, it can go for caring for aging parents, or whenever a family's in trauma. It's not a professional therapist. It's a trusted person that the family knows, who's just a little bit on the outside of the day-to-day problems and emotions and solutions. So that's a thought too.
Absolutely. There's much to learn about all this from you, Ingrid, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you about this, also learn from your book. So what's the best way for them to do so?
Great. So anywhere you buy books online, it's available. And also I wanted to share that it's on audible.com. I created the audiobook a year or so ago. And also, if you want, I have a free digital version available thanks to my publisher, Morgan James. And if you email me directly at ingrid@droppedpencil.com, I can send you the code so that you can get an electronic version of the book at no charge instantly. So yeah, so Barnes and Noble. If you love independent, do you have independent bookstores? What's your bookstore situation there?
We have several bookstores. We do get the books if we want. Rest all depends on individuals, where they want online, offline. It's the
Sure.
same like any other part of the world.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
in the US a bit different, but here everything is available.
Great. Very good. So yeah, Barnes and Noble is a great resource online. And because we have so many chains, like big corporations, what's coming to the surface in the author world is independent bookstores, or indies. And so one of the other providers that is a great supporter of independent bookshops, if that's a passion for you, which I appreciate, it's called bookshop.org. So if you're really into independent bookstores versus the big monster corporations, that's also a resource.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.